is Dr. Anvita Maharishi, who's going to review a paper that we actually published. We're going to start with, I believe we're talking about some of the newer zirconias and some of the things that can be possible with them and some of the things you as a practitioner should think about.
So the problem we are addressing today is how to identify what percentage of Yttria, the zirconia crowns you're receiving from labs have. So the day-to-day problems we run into is that the FDA requires to list weight percent of Yttria in the stickers that you get from on your lab prescriptions, whereas the lectures you will attend, the papers you will see, all talk about the mole percentage of these materials. So the confusion is the weight percent similar to the mole percent? If not, then how do we convert this? And for a day-to-day clinician, this is a very good education point where I need to know if I'm talking in the mole percent category or in the weight percent category. So today we'll be doing a little talk about what is the difference between weight percent of Yttria and mole percent of Yttria. This is the composition of zirconia slide where yttrium oxide is the main dopant we are going to talk about today that affects the mechanical and optical properties of the zirconia materials. And yttrium oxide, when you talk about in weight percentage, can vary from around 4 to 9 weight percent, but it differs when we talk about the mole percentage. Perfect. So this is a very nice table I like. The 3Y materials, the 3 mole percent materials we talk about contain 5.3 weight percent of Yttria. And the 5Y or 5 mole percent materials contain 8.8 weight percent of Yttria. The in-between material, which is kind of the ideal material, is the 4Y material because it has best of both the worlds, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, has about 7.1 weight percent of Yttria. So Dr. McLaren, do you want to explain what a mole is?
Yeah, I mean, it's oversimply stated. It relates to carbon, okay, the amount of atoms and carbon and stuff. But simply stated, and sorry for any pure scientists, a 3Y or 3 mole material means 3% of the molecules of whatever you're describing, Yttria in this case. 4Y, 4% of the molecules are Yttria. 5Y, 5% of the molecules. And the functionality or what that really means to the clinician or the lab, as we add more Yttria, we precipitate out more of the cubic phase, the more translucent phase. 3Y material has virtually no cubic phase. 5Y material has about 50% cubic phase. So it becomes more translucent as we add Yttria.
So we all know that alumina sandblasting of 3Y zirconia causes increase in flexural strength, and this is attributed to the property called as transformation toughening. Without getting into further details, let's talk about what surface treatment of 5Y or 5 mole percent zirconia does to its mechanical properties. So for this paper, what we did was we milled some discs per ISO 6872-2015 standards and then sintered them per manufacturer's instructions. The sintering lasted for about 7 to 8 hours, depending on each manufacturer's protocol, and the whole time at high temperature was usually around 2 hours. And we also did an experimental fast sintering cycle in just a regular furnace and not a super speed or speed sintering furnace. And this was back in the day. We did the study in 2015, to believe it or not. And then we fired these specimens at these shorter cycles for 30 minutes, whole time at the highest temperature, and the total time in the furnace was about 75 minutes, and also saw the effect of fast sintering on mechanical and optical properties. And this has been published in this paper as well. Surface treatment for the specimens ranged from high polish to 2000 grit of silicon carbide paper. One group we wanted to see what a machine would do to a disc, so that we called as our as machine group. The third group was our sandblasting or surface treatment with alumina group, where we used 50 microns of alumina at 2 bar pressure for about 20 seconds. And then the other group was surface treatment with glass beads, and these were 50 micron glass beads at same 2.5 bar pressure. And then the last group we tested was fast sintering. This is actually stated in the paper. So the interesting thing to note, the blue highlights that you see, that the 4Y material behaved quite like the 3Y material, whereas the argan-Z interior lava aesthetic and katana STML, all three of them are 5Y materials or 5 mole percent Yttria materials. For all of them, the strength dropped significantly with surface treatment with alumina. However, for EMAX Zircite MT, which at that time, which was a 4Y material, the strength did not drop because some transformation was still occurring in this material, just like a regular 3Y material would have. And just to show you a graph of the same thing, All the 5Y materials, if you look at the green bars, the strength drops significantly when surface treated with alumina, and the green bar is the luminous surface treatment bar. And then the glass bead bar, glass beads do not destroy the structure or the surface characteristic of the zirconia, so the strength does not go down, whereas for the 4Y material, that is the material on the third column, the strength with alumina went up. So let me show you some interesting SEM images. The left side image is the hand-polished 2000 grit image of a zirconia surface, or 5Y zirconia surface. The image on the right is as machined 5Y zirconia surface. This is a very interesting image where alumina sandblasting actually destroys the surface texture of a 5Y material. And the glass beads do not do that and look very similar to an as-machined surface of a 5Y material. And again, close comparison of as machined and a glass bead surface of a 5Y material. And we also tested color as part of this study and used a colorizer and spectrophotometer just to show you how each material can be different in chroma, although they are all A2s. And that's another rant we will discuss in one of our next episodes, is how every company has an A2 version of their material, but they all look different. And we've tested this consistently with our state-of-the-art spectrophotometers. Just to show you, both of these materials are 5Y materials, but they look different in chroma, and both of them are A2.
And it also showed that if we slightly fired different temperatures, there's a subtle difference in color too.
Correct. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. So you can see that a fast sintering cycle would change the chroma and translucency a little bit as well. So, yes. And the raves about this article, this paper talks about surface treatment on translucent zirconia materials. As a take-home message, the 3Y material, if sandblasted with alumina, you can cement if you have retention or resistance form on your preparation, or you can bond with the resin cement. Now, the 4Y material, if you sandblast with alumina, same thing. You can cement or you can bond. But here's the tricky part. For a 5Y material, if you do surface treatment with alumina, the strength is going to drop. And then significantly, and you can see the results in the paper. And then if you try to cement it because you think you would have the retention and resistance form, the crown is going to break, especially in a high stress situation or for a bruxer. And this is when you see some of the 5Y crowns failing in the posterior regions. So then I would recommend, if you're treating it with glass beads, or if you're treating it with alumina, then bonding only. And here I come back to my rant, which day-to-day basis, because I'm also a teacher, I deal with these questions on a daily basis in my student clinic, and there is a struggle between lab and clinician communication as to how to treat the intaglio surface of crowns. And a topic for more episodes would be how to treat your surfaces. Do I use IvoClean? Do I sandblast? Do I steam it? Do I treat it with alcohol? What do the salivary phosphates do if I try in a crown? How am I going to cement it or bond it? So on and so forth. So there's still struggle. And also to recognize your materials, because in lab prescriptions, most of my students are writing, please make a zirconia crown. But what type of zirconia are you prescribing? And then if your lab is using certain kind of zirconia and it comes back, and if it is a 5Y, although 5Y materials are being slowly ruled out of the commercial market, we still see some 5Y materials being used. And then without knowing the composition or the Y of my material, how am I going to decide which cement I'm going to use, which protocol I'm going to use? Am I using conventional cementation or am I using adhesive bonding? So that's why the take-home message and the rant for today is most clinicians do not know the Ys of their zirconia materials, and that's a problem at hand.
Let me say something.
You wanted me to present your case.
Oh,
so that's
you got a case. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
All
your
right.
case.
All
So
right.
yeah, this is a 5Y case Dr. McLaren did in 2016, I want to say. Both of them are 5Y materials and single unit interior monolithic surface painting only. And then Dr. McLaren, if you can show the next slide, that's the pre-op.
A quick look at this. What I want to show you, though, is that here's the important point, okay? That these companies that say that they're 750 megapascals, the 5Ys, the STML, the Argon HT, several out there, okay? You need to know this, okay? Because the pure 5Y means 5% Yttria molecules. If you sandblast it, you lose roughly 40% of the strength. So you're down maybe around 450 megapascals. Okay, for a single crown, that's fine, but not for a Brit, all right? And if you have a thin crown, maybe you're 8/10 or 6/10 or something occlusally, you should definitely bond it. So you want to know the percentage of Yttria in your material. And then the other point about this, and we're also looking at these gradient materials, that if you have a 4Y or a gradient material, in other words, a little bit higher or less Yttria content, they still maintain their strength if they sandblast. So the materials to use today for single crowns for the most translucent or a 5Y, or a gradient material that has 5Y. For bridges, a 4Y, or a gradient material that has 3 or 4Y, okay? And you can ask maybe in the questions which ones, and we'll give you some names of materials later. So that basically, I believe, is really the message of this paper.